Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 20 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 39, Students A through B. The next couple of minutes had involved a lot of processing from those who had just arrived, along with plenty of explaining on Flare-Up's end. The Autobot scout had been rather sheepish as she relayed her report to Optimus Prime, who simply listened politely as she did. All the while, the 41B students were standing with their new mini-con friends, though Itsuka was standing at the front and staying resolute for their sake. Whatever the outcome of all this was, she'd be ready to defend her new friend, no matter what. However, while that was going on, the returning 1A students were staring at the quartet in utter bafflement. Eijiro, for his part, couldn't believe that his rival from the sports festival was standing in Autobot headquarters right now. Tetsu. Momo rubbed her eyes to make sure she wasn't seeing things. Sure enough, she wasn't. Kendo. Denki felt his cheeks heat up at the sight of a certain vine-haired girl, though how she was here of all places just baffled him. Shish Shiozaki. Mina, on the other hand, was less shocked and more curious as to how this all happened. She took it in stride much better than her friends as she pointed to Setsuna. And you're, Tokage, right? You guys are from Class 1B, she raised a brow at them. So, what are ya doing here? Immediately, Denki, Momo and Eijiro all fell to the floor at Mina's nonchalant attitude, while the 1B students felt their jaws unhinge. That was unexpected, and Mina's friends were quick to point that out. Mina, would you please take this seriously? Momo exclaimed, extending a hand to their unanticipated guests. I think you're missing the point that now we have 4 more people who are in the know about the Autobots. Yeah, we're supposed to be keeping their existence a secret, remember? Eijiro added. Itsuka raised her hand. If it helps, we all kinda got into this by accident. That made Denki and the others do a double take, with the other Autobots all intently listening. Wait, seriously? Indeed. Abara affirmed. We had absolutely no intention of finding out this secret. Rather, we managed to get roped into all of this by complete happenstance. A blush of her own came to her face as she looked at Denki in particular. That being said, just how long have you all known about the Autobots, Kaminari? Denki scratched the back of his head, glancing away. Well, you see, we kinda got pulled into this by accident too. Pretty sure that's the case with all of us. Izuku piped up, interjecting himself into the exchange. After all, if I hadn't found Bumblebee on Dagoba Beach last year, none of this would be happening. He craned his head up toward Prime, who had just finished hearing Flare-Up out. But I don't think that we've got anything to worry about here, honestly. Kyoka nodded in agreement. Yeah, it could have been way worse, that's for sure. I do not doubt either of those statements, you too. Optimus assured, his optics shifting back to Flare-Up. In fact, after hearing your end of the story, Flare-Up, I believe it's safe to say that none of you are at fault for how this came about. Accidents happen, that much is clear. He turned fully to the Autobot scout. After all, we were unable to detect your presence on Earth when you arrived, and as a result, we did not properly contact you. In a way, the fault also lies with us as well. That aside, your dedication to protecting those humans and the mini-cons is certainly commendable, and for that, I thank you. Sideswipe raised a finger. Though to be fair, you really could have tried coming the base first, so, clank. And there it is. He snarled as he whipped around to Strongarm, the cadet having chopped the back of his head. The whole reason I took the mission in the first place. Well, you aren't exactly making the situation better, punk. Strongarm retorted, whispering harshly as she yanked him away from Flare-Up. Flare already feels bad about this happening, so don't go around making it worse for her. Sideswipe raised his hands. Hey, I'm just saying, maybe this all could have been avoided if, URK. Just then, from behind, he was grasped around the neck by Bulkhead, the wrecker giving him a rather stern look. Sideswipe, normally I don't take sides in these skirmishes, but I think it's best if you don't bring up the what-ifs right now. Bulkhead narrowed his optics and stated plain and clearly, leave the past in the past and focus on what happened. The Autobot warrior gave a groan, rolling his optics. All right, fair point. With that, he was let go, leaving him to rub his neck irritably. Still, wouldn't surprise me if Flare did forget to do that. How did I forget to try coming them first? Flare Up berated herself in her own head, smacking her helm repeatedly. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Ah, there you go again, Flare, jumping in without thinking. Ah, I just wish I could. Flare Up, MHA. Shaken out of her stupor, Flare Up craned her head back up to Optimus, who was now standing in front of her. Oh, sorry, Optimus, she craned her head back down sadly. If you feel the need to reprimand me for almost costing the mission, then I won't argue with you. I deserve it. However, Optimus reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. Flare Up, none of this is your fault, and I don't want you to shoulder it all on yourself. As I said, the fault lies in several factors here. And even then, I do not want this moment to be dampened by the negatives. That made Flare Up raise an eyebrow up to him. What do you mean by that? Beneath his faceplate, Optimus Prime smiled as he took his hand off Flare Up's shoulder, extending it for a handshake. Flare Up, welcome to Earth. It is an honor to have you among us. He craned his head toward the rest of the Autobots and the humans before them. And I'm certain that the rest of the team thinks the same, so please, make yourself at home. Thank you, Optimus Prime, sir. Flare Up returned the handshake with a bow of her head. I promise, I'll try and think ahead more in my time on Earth. You can count on it. I appreciate your commitment. Prime returned, their handshake ended. I hope to see that same enthusiasm when it comes to taking care of the Decepticons, as well. To that, Flare Up winked and gave a two-fingered salute. Oh, you can definitely count on that. Excellent. Now, I believe it is time to address our other new arrivals, too. Optimus brought his attention over to the 41B students, the teens all shifting nervously in their spots. Once the Autobot leader started making his way toward them, they all stiffened up straight, though they were met with a surprise when he crouched down in front of them. HM, no need to be so anxious, young ones. Everything is fine, I assure you. The four glanced at one another when he said that, with Itsuka biting her lower lip. Okay. I'm Itsuka Kendo, Class 1B's class representative. She bowed fully in respect, which her friends followed suit with. My name is Optimus Prime. The commander returned the bow. We are autonomous robotic organisms from the planet Cybertron. Autobots, yeah, Itsuka confirmed. We were pretty much given the lowdown on everything before you arrived. Tetsu rubbed the back of his head. Man, to think that a bunch of alien robots would be fighting a secret war here on Earth of all places. And we pretty much got caught up in all of it thanks to finding those guys over there. Setsuna nudged her head over to the Street Action Minicon team, who were standing behind them in support. Not to say I regret it or anything, but still, this definitely wasn't on my to-do list for today. Optimus' attention was brought up to the Minicons in question. Yes, you are the ones who found these three. With a smile that was conveyed by his optics alone, Optimus brought his hand up to them. And I must sincerely thank you for that. If you all hadn't found them first, the Decepticons likely would have found them instead, and have them reprogrammed for evil. We are in your debt. That made Ibarra's eyebrows shoot up. Wait, they can do that. She covered her heart in shock. How abhorrent. Indeed, Lady Ibarra. Sir Shock affirmed, her optics visibly worried. Unfortunately, while we're inside of our stasis panels, Minicons are very susceptible to being reprogrammed. In the wrong hands, we can be made into hardcore deviants. High Wire's clip-shaped hands balled up in anger. It makes me so mad to see Decepticons just use us for our power and not appreciate us for it. That's why we trusted the Autobots to take us off-world and find us a better place to live. Grinder crossed his arms with a huff. PSH, yeah, cons are the worst, but it looks like our new homes attracted even more of them. And what's worse is that the cons already have some mini-cons of their own. Sunstreaker said, delivering the bad news with a lowered head. I'm sorry, but Jetstorm, Sonar and Runway were corrupted. That made the Street Action team do a collective double take. What? High Wire exclaimed. The air defense team's been corrupted. Bulkhead furrowed his irises with a heavy sigh. Yeah, though now they call themselves the Air Assault Team. But we will free them, High Wire. Optimus placed a hand over his chest windows. I swear upon my very spark that all mini-cons will be free from Decepticon control. And once they are, we will continue our efforts to find you a new, permanent home. Thank you, Optimus, but you can hold off on that. Highwire assured, he and his team now sharing determined expressions. We mini-cons have already tried to run from the war, but it's obvious that didn't work. If the Decepticons want to keep trying to use us, then I think it's time we fight back. He nodded to each of his teammates and, all at once. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. They formed up into Safeguard, much to the shock of everyone. Most shocked were Ajiro, Momo, Denki, and especially Mina, the pink girl's jaw having dropped to the floor in stunned silence. Did those three just combine into one robot? Momo exclaimed. Denki threw his hands up and turned away. That's it, I give up, nothing about these guys can surprise me anymore. Safeguard raised a fist and placed it over their chest, smiling up to Optimus. Rest assured, you can safely say that Safeguard is with you. The three of us will do whatever it takes to free our kind and keep them out of the Decepticons' clutches. You have our word. Optimus brought his hand down, with Safeguard placing his own smaller hand in it. Your words humble me, Safeguard. I will do my best to uphold my word as well. He craned his head back toward the 1B students. And what of you all? Now that you know our secret, you all will likely be targeted by the Decepticons as well. We will. Tetsu asked, a hint of worry in his voice. Yes, and thus, it would be ill-advised to leave you unguarded. Which means. But just then, Mina hopped up in front of Optimus, having recovered from her stupor with a wide, beaming smile. Which means you're gonna have to stick around. Eeeeeeeee. Oh, this is so exciting. More members to add to the cyber squad. The whole group, Autobots, Minicons and humans alike, stared at Mina incredulously at that. Cyber squad, Kyoko repeated. I don't think we ever agreed to that. Izuku added. Well, I thought it up right now, so ha. Mina booped Izuku on the nose before whirling back to the 1B students and Safeguard. But don't you guys worry about a thing. I'm gonna make absolutely sure that you and your Minicon buddies feel nice and at home here with all the rest of us. But Itsuka raised a hand to her. Whoa, hold on just a sec. We haven't even agreed to anything yet. She gestured toward herself. I mean, sure, I'm all for joining up, but what about them? Her hand extended back to her classmates. They could possibly still have a chance at having a somewhat normal life after this, right? No need for even more people to get caught up in. Actually, that might not be possible. May interrupted, doing some math on her calculator. Given the fact that all three of you managed to make the Decepticon second in command angry with your interference, I'd say that all you have, she held up the calculator with a smirk. About a 95.3% chance of being targeted. The four teens all eyed one another warily, not exactly trusting the math at play. What about the other 4.7%? Setsuna asked. Always gotta leave room for error. May threw her calculator on the workbench behind her and leaned in toward them, her eyes gleaming with about as much excitement as Mina's. And besides, it's not like you guys can just walk when you know about this place. Mina nodded wholeheartedly. Yup, your guys' fate pretty much got sealed when ya came through the ground bridge. Crap, she's right. Itsuka grimaced, facing her friends with an apologetic gaze. Guys, I'm sorry that you had to get caught up in this mess, really. However, Setsuna simply shook her head. Don't be, Itsuka. Honestly, I'm completely fine with it. Her eyes shifted between Abara and Tetsu, both nodding back to her with confidence. And these guys are, too, so we're pretty much in it for the long haul. Yay! Mina and May exclaimed before both started chanting, one of us. One of us. One of us. The 1B students couldn't help but wince a little at their support. Ahem, Optimus coughed in his hand, bringing the chanting to a halt. While I appreciate you girls' enthusiasm for our new arrivals, I believe it is imperative that we also focus on how they will be protected. Optimus' optics shifted between them and Safeguard. Thankfully, to my understanding, it would seem that these three scanned your respective modes of transport, correct? Abara nodded up to him. Yes, that's right, though they are slightly different. I doubt our parents would notice, honestly. Setsuna shrugged. I mean, they're not that different. Tetsu deadpanned at her, thrusting his hands toward Grinder's knees. Tokage, Grinder has thrusters. Abara winced, placing a finger to her cheek. And my scooter is white, not orange. Oh okay, maybe there's some things that they'd notice. Setsuna admitted before reaching over and patting Safeguard on the leg. But we can figure out all that stuff later. Heck, maybe we can tell our parents that we bought some new top-of-the-line models or whatever. But get psyched, guys. We're gonna be helping out in a freaking war effort. But if anything, that got Safeguard confused. Setsuna, there really isn't much to be excited about when joining a war. They gave the 41B students a serious expression. Believe us when we say that, if you dedicate yourself to this, there will be no going back. You must be prepared for any hardships that may come, because they will happen. Oh, yeah, you've got a point. Setsuna nodded. Safeguard separated back into the 3 mini-cons and High Wire set a hand to her shoulder. But you can be sure that we're gonna protect you 3, no matter what, okay. Sir Shock bowed to Abara in respect. I would be absolutely honored to be by your side, Lady Abara. Abara smiled and nodded in approval. Yes, of course. Sir Shock, the honor is all mine. And my man Tetsu's gonna be in for the ride of his life, bro. Grinder extended a fist to the steel quirk user. Hope you're ready, man. Oh ho, I'm more than ready. Tetsu solidified his fist into metal and returned the fist bump with vigor. Bring it on. He wore a toothy grin as he set his sights over to Eijiro and sideswipe. Besides, the fact that Kirishima's here gives me even more reason to stick around. He set a determined glare on the hardening user, raising a fist. After all, I've got a feeling that training with the Autobots is how you were able to beat me in the sports festival. And I wouldn't be a real man if I just let that happen again. And, just like that, Eijiro could feel himself getting pumped up, to the point where he hardened his arm and ran up to Tetsu, clashing it with his. Oh yeah, well, I'll give you this, you're right about the training part. He leaned in, returning the same determination. But you're dead wrong if you think I'm just gonna let you get ahead of me. That made Tetsu bellow out a laugh. Oh ho, we've got a funny man, here. He briefly eyed Sideswipe. Guess you really managed to light a fire under his ass, Sid. Sideswipe just smirked right back. You bet. And my man's gonna come at ya twice as hard in next year's sports fest, you can count on it. Hey, not if I make sure Tetsu's ahead of him, bro. Grinder shouted out, running up to Sideswipe's leg and jumping up and down. You just wait. I'm gonna make sure he hardens up to the max. Huh, is that so, Pee-wee? Sideswipe poked Grinder on the head. Eijiro's gonna get harder than you can even comprehend. Grinder slapped his hand away and shouted, who are you callin' Pee-wee, hefty bot? Twinkle toes. 2-ton tower. Microbot. Gargan to aft. As the two went back and forth, Eijiro and Tetsu's competitive spirit immediately died down as they winced at the jabs being sent back and forth. Maybe we wanna stop this before it gets outta, clang clang. Like clockwork, Strongarm and Sir Shock both chopped their respective teammates on their necks, sending them clattering to the ground. Thanks. Eijiro sighed. Strongarm sighed as well. You're welcome, she shook her head in disapproval. Punk mechs. I know, try having to combine with him. Sir Shock facepalmed. As that was happening, Denki was slowly sidestepping his way over to Abara, just out of her line of sight. This was it, his chance to actually make some proper conversation with her. I was gonna see if I could do this after school on Thursday, but if this isn't a blessing in disguise, I dunno what is. With that thought in his mind and his blush under control, Denki finally stopped just a few feet away and cleared his throat. Ahem, so Shiozaki, I gotta ask, how are ya handling all of this? Abara blinked and spun around, which was almost like slow motion for Denki as he watched her Vine's hair whirl around with her. Oh, Kaminari, I will admit, it was a lot to take in at first, she gave him a confident smile. But I'm fairly certain that I feel much better now that everything has been settled. Though I must admit, her sights then settled on Sunstreaker. I had absolutely no idea that your Autobot friends were actually at the sports festival, right in front of our very eyes. The yellow Autobot chuckled to himself, placing a hand on his chest as he began to boast about it. Hee, well believe it, little miss, because check this out. Sunstreaker then backflipped into his vehicle mode, landing on the ground with a thud before his hollow matter avatar appeared in his driver's seat only a second later. Sunny got out of the Lamborghini and gave Abara a wave. "Sup, girl?" "Oh, my goodness." Abara covered her mouth with her fingertips. "That was amazing." She turned her head to Surshak curiously. "Can you do that, Surshak?" "Unfortunately, no, Lady Abara." Surshak brought her hands together, rubbing them anxiously. Us mini-cons are capable of many things, but creating hollow matter avatars is not one of them. It's a shame, because mini-cons such as us would benefit greatly from having them. Denki gave a shrug at that. I don't think it's that big of a loss. I mean, you guys can combine into a freaking tower of power. That's just too freaking cool. Surshak went from nervous to happy in a split second. Very true. You're very kind, Mr. Denki, thank you. Abara couldn't help but smile sweetly to the young blonde, tucking a stray vine behind her ear. He does have a way of words, that one. She trailed off and turned her head away, blushing profusely without noticing that Denki was very much doing the same. Up above, Flare-Up couldn't help but snicker a little at the scene. Hee, isn't that just adorable? Ha ha. Tap tap, huh. The red and orange femme spun around to see who had tapped her shoulder, only for her optics to widen at the sight of a certain city speaker standing before her. "I've been waiting since we got back for this moment," Windblade stated plain and simple, holding her arms out to Flare-Up. "Might have taken a while, but, welcome home, Flare. It's been so long." "Ah, Windy." Flare-Up practically screamed in delight as she pulled Windblade in for a hug, going so far as to lift her up off the ground and spin her around excitedly. "Ah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. How in the frag did I not notice you?" "Haha, I don't know, I'm kinda hard to miss." Windblade laughed as Flare-Up set her down, impressed by her strength. "But it's really good to see you, Flare. Primus, has it really been over 500 stellar cycles since we last saw one another?" Flare-Up gave a wink. "Actually, it's been 572 stellar cycles, but hey, who's countin'?" The two femmes laughed in unison before Flare-Up put a hand to Windblade's shoulder. "But seriously, it's absolutely smashing to see you, love." Windblade placed her hand over her friend's. Same here." In the corner of her optic, however, she suddenly caught sight of Momo approaching from behind, which made her gasp in realization. "Oh right, I should introduce you too." She stepped around and extended a hand down to her partner. "Flare-Up, I'd like you to meet my best human friend and partner, Momo Yaoyorozu. And Momo, this is Flare-Up. She's my best friend from Cybertron." The two locked sights with one another, with Flare-Up giving a greeting smile. "Well, hello there. Nice to meet ya, Momo." She squatted down and offered Momo her hand. "Any friend of Windy's is a friend o' mine." "Oh, well thank you." Momo returned the gesture, placing her hand on Flare-Up's finger. "It's an honor to meet someone who's such a close friend of Windblade's." "Do you two go far back?" The scout responded with a wink. "Oh, you don't know the half of it. We pretty much emerged on the same day as protoforms, and, from there, we were knit together tighter than a mesh sealer." Ha. But then, her mirthful expression became one of sullenness. "But then, well, the war broke out and we were separated into different squadrons based on our specialties. Not to say I didn't like the team I was assigned to, far from it, but," she craned her head back up to Windblade with a sad smile. "It's almost like losing a sister, ya know. I kind of wish I could," Momo said sympathetically. "Unfortunately, I'm an only child. I would have loved to have a sister, though. But even then, I can see how much of a bond you have with Windblade, so I can definitely understand what you're talking about." It was then, however, that Momo noticed that Itsuka was standing silently off to the side, no doubt not wanting to interrupt the moment. But at the same time, Momo wasn't about to let her do that. She smiled and waved the redhead down. "Kendo. Hello there." Itsuka did a double take as the raven-haired girl came over, trying as hard as she could to make herself not look flustered. Oh, hello, Yaoyorozu. Please, call me Momo. Or Yoamomo if you're so inclined. Momo gave her a bright, bubbly smile, taking the redhead even more off guard. "Everyone here does, after all." Oh, okay. Yaomomo it is, then." Itsuka returned the grin. "I think that's actually a really cute nickname. The two girls giggled a little before Itsuka asked, "So, how long have you known about the Autobots?" "Since the USJ incident, actually." Momo pointed over to Bumblebee, who noticed and sent her a wave from across the room. "It happened when Midoriya, Kyoka and I were separated from the others. Bumblebee and Windblade both came to our aid, and let me tell you, I was fairly stunned." Itsuka nodded with a shaky smile. "Hey, yeah, I'll bet. Though thankfully your first experience didn't involve getting chased by Decepticons down the freeway." She smirked and raised a brow up to flare up, the scout rubbing her neck sheepishly. "Me? Yeah, not so much." "Ooh, then we have something in common then." Both Momo and Itsuka yelped as Mina popped up between the both of them, the pink girl beaming at the redhead. "The same exact thing happened to me, Kirishima, Kaminari, Iida and Ochako when we found out about the Autobots." That made Itsuka's eyebrows shoot up. Whoa, hold on, really? All of a sudden, Setsuna came over with widened eyes of her own. "No way. That's gotta be a crazy coincidence." Highwire, standing behind her, rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "It does seem awfully lucky that similar events managed to happen like that. Granted, it's a rather twisted sense of luck, but still." But Mina wagged her finger at the green-haired girl with a knowing smirk. But see, I don't think so. They often say history repeats itself for a reason." She offered a wink to the 1B girls. "So I think it was fated that you guys found out about the Autobots, too." "Fated?" The two girls were left perplexed by Mina's words. Momo, with a somewhat irritated face, went over and pushed Mina's head down gently, much to her chagrin. "Don't worry, she often gets like this. Mina's our resident conspiracy theorist. To be honest, it's hard to keep her under control sometimes." HMPH, Mina pursed her lips, giving Momo a soft glare. "PSH, conspiracy theorist, she says." She pushed her head back up and raised a finger to the rich girl. "Well, let me ask ya this, WHO was it who guessed right when she said that shapeshifting aliens had come to Earth after the meteor shower?" "Oh right, that was ME." Bulkhead couldn't help but chuckle at that. "Hee, well, ya gotta give her credit for that one, Momo. She did guess right on that one." "Ha. See." Mina held her chin up proudly. "Bulkhead gets it." With a resigned sigh, Momo facepalmed. "Yes, and that kind of worries me." Just then, May raised her hand up toward Optimus, her excitement clear in her voice. "Oh yeah, hey Prime. How'd the mission go? We heard you said it was a success, so, where's the relic?" "Yes, I was just about to ask that myself," Red Alert chimed in with a slight head tilt toward Prime's trailer. "I didn't see any of you bring anything in, so is it inside the combat deck?" Optimus nodded to him. "Indeed. Also, on a related note, the combat deck itself worked surprisingly well, you too. Excellent job in constructing it." "Hey, was there ever any doubt?" May smirked while nudging Red Alert's leg with her arm, earning a proud chortle from the medical engineer. "So, what's the new piece of Cybertronian bling, Prime?" Jazz inquired further, stepping over to the trailer. "Something powerful, I'm bettin'." "Well, for one thing, it wasn't a relic at all." Optimus strolled over himself, placing a hand gently on top of the trailer as every Autobot and human focused on the wheeled box. Rather, the coordinates led us to a message from Makatum that was sent to Earth with the relics, one that was placed in a certain spot so that I could find it, along with the true objective it was leading us to. Kyoka scratched her head. Mac who? Makatum, Red Alert repeated in awe. An old bot who ran an oil house in the Autobot capital city. Somehow, he was gifted with the ability to see premonitions of the future, and he often used this ability to give bots hints to what was to come for them. Izuku blinked at that. A bartender, with the ability to see the future. He placed a hand on his forehead. "Yeah, the fact that I'm not shocked about that at all is very telling to just how used to this stuff I've become." Getting back on track, he smiled up to the Prime. "Well, Optimus, don't leave us in suspense, show us what you found." Izuku, it isn't a matter of what I found, but who I found." Optimus gave the top of his trailer a pat, willing the doors open as a ramp extended out into the ground out the back. "Come out, old friend, and come meet your new teammates." As if on cue, a small engine could be heard revving before tiny drone car came whizzing out the back of the trailer, practically launching off the ramp and skidding across the floor, its 6 metal wheels leaving sparks along the floor. The tiny blue buggy had a flashing red light on its rear, leading the teens and other Autobots to all focus straight on it. "Whoa!" Flare-Up exclaimed. "Comin' through." "What the?" Itsuka started, only to be cut off when the parts of the buggy started shifting. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. The front end of the buggy flipped out with its front tires and front seats, which then separated into 2 separate legs. Then, the 2 other sets of wheels extended outward, revealing a pair of arms that slammed down on the floor so the tiny robot could stand up. Finally, a flat-topped head poked out from the top of the new bot's torso, revealing a grin and a pair of yellow optics. The stylized M logo on the center of his chest, as well as the port on his midsection, told everyone all they needed to know. "Another mini-con," Tetsu shouted. "No way." Setsuna glanced over to High Wire in shock. "Huh, friend of yours." High Wire, for his part, was left completely stunned, along with Grinder and Sir Shock as well. He's our leader." "Ah, I see, huh." The new mini-con, who was noticeably slightly bigger than all the rest, approached the group with open arms and greeting. "Ha. High Wire, Sir Shock, Grinder, I thought those voices seemed familiar." He folded his arms over his chest with a small smirk. "Sorry to keep you waiting, but I wanted to make a grand entrance, if you know what I'm saying." "Our Roller," Sir Shock cried gleefully as she and her team approached him, crowding around with their arms stretched back toward him. "You're here. By the Maker, you're well and truly here." "Ha. Talk about luck." Grinder laughed as well. "To think, all 4 of us would be found on the exact same day." Roller nodded down to his brethren. "I know. I'm very glad that's the case." He spotted the 1B students, as well as Izuku, Kyoka and Mei staring at them, to which he nodded back. "And I believe I have you all to thank for helping them escape the clutches of the Decepticons." "Excellent work." He went up to the kids, jerking a thumb to his chest. "My name's Roller, and I'm the leader of the mini-cons." He glanced back toward Optimus over his shoulder. "Which also makes me Optimus Prime's partner mini-con." "Holy crap. Seriously?" Kyoka whipped her head up to the Prime happily. "Optimus, that's so cool that you found your old partner." Izuku was quick to agree. "Yeah, congratulations, Optimus." He then extended a hand toward Roller himself. "And it's nice to meet you, Roller. My name is Izuku Midoriya. Welcome to Autobot Outpost Omega-1. Ah, so you're the one who Makata mentioned in his message." Roller shook Izuku's hand enthusiastically. "Nice to meet you, too, Mr. Midoriya." Izuku's fine." The Greenette's face flushed in embarrassment before realizing what Roller said. Wait, hold on, Makata mentioned me." Optimus cleared his throat, the commander feeling somewhat chagrined that Roller mentioned that before he wanted. "Ahem, yes, he did. I was going to mention it to you later in a more private manner, but, he said something about keeping an eye on your quirk. He raised a single eyelash. As well as something about an inner knight within you." And just like that, Izuku jerked his head back, incredulous at that term. Inner knight. What the heck is that supposed to mean? I am unsure myself, honestly. Optimus admitted with a shrug. That being said, Mac has always been known to speak in riddles often, so it could possibly be a metaphor. Kyoka, for her part, was rather intrigued by this. Inner knight, huh? Immediately, her mind went straight to picturing Izuku in a suit of sterling silver armor, holding a long sword while a green cape billowed behind him. It was hysterical. She had to suck in her lips and put her hand over her mouth as she convulsed, her laughter almost too much to contain. Izuku sent her a deadpan grimace. "Hey, what's so funny?" He, I'm sorry." Kyoka's apologized as she busted out laughing. It's just that, haha, the thought of you in a suit of armor is just something I cannot picture without it seeming so out of place." The One-for-All inheritor folded his arms, feeling a bit irked at that. "And what's that supposed to mean?" "Well, no offense, dude, but ya do kind of have a baby face." Eijiro pointed out, making Tetsu snicker a little. Izuku's head snapped over to her, ja agape. Kirishima, you too." That sent Setsuna and Mina both cackling madly, mainly at his expression. Ha. Oh, this is too rich. The lizard tail splitter user went over and pat Izuku on the shoulder without hesitation. Hey, don't worry, my fellow greenie. I think you'd look pretty cool as a knight. Yeah, Midori, you'd rock being on a horse. Mina added with a cheeky thumbs up. While their support was appreciated, Izuku still couldn't help feeling a little called out. Was his face really that childish? Thanks, I think. Shooing those thoughts away, though, Izuku went back to thinking about what Makatam said. But back on track, why would Makatam say something like that in the first place? Again, I cannot be entirely sure. Optimus placed a hand to his chin, pondering why himself. Though considering he said so in relation to your quirk, I believe the two aspects could be connected. Momo nodded in agreement. Yes, that is a fair assumption. After all, Midoriya's quirk is quite unique. The only one I can think of as being similar is All Might's, and we all know that's why he took Midoriya under his wing. She craned her head to the quirk inheritor in question. Perhaps what Makatam could be referring to is, your inner hero. Now that made much more sense to Izuku. Oh, yeah, you have a point, Yaoyorozu. That could be the case. The very next second, however, Izuku gasped as he remembered something. Oh, shoot, I forgot. He pulled out his phone and began going through his contacts. I need to call All Might and tell him about what happened today. Hold on a second. Itsuka stepped over to Izuku, rather shocked at the information going around all at once. Are you saying that you're being trailed personally by All Might? And that he knows about all of this? Well, yes. Izuku nudged his head toward Bumblebee. He and I were the ones to find Bumblebee on Dagoba Beach. If that didn't happen, none of us would be here right now. He sent her a knowing smile. Plus, I'm pretty sure I said that all of UA's faculty are in the know about this, so it should come as no surprise, right? The 1B students all gaped at Izuku before Tetsu realized something else. Hold on. Is that how you were able to just dominate the sports festival? Because you were trained by All Might himself. Pretty much. Well, All Might and Optimus helped train me. But Izuku raised a finger to them. I mean, to be fair, I did came close to losing plenty of times yesterday. A lot of it came down to sheer luck, if I'm being honest. Luck. Tetsu threw his head back and his hands went to his hair, viciously roughing it up. You've gotta be kidding me. We've got basically All Might 2.0 in our grade and he won with mostly luck. PSH, nah. Kyoka scoffed. Most of it was him. He just had a little luck on his side. That made Izuku scoff as he dialed up All Might. Hey, tell that to Todoroki and Shinso. They were this close to knocking me out. He brought the phone up to his ear, his finger going to his lips briefly. Now shush, I've gotta break the news to All Might gently. The moment he heard a click on the other line, he started with a friendly, hey, All Might, how are things? Young Midoriya. All Might shouted in relief. Thank goodness, I was wondering when you would call. All Might. What's going on? Is something wrong? He heard a grunt from the number one hero as he heard something crunch on the other end, likely something getting thrown. You could say that. I've been getting reports of all sorts of chaos across southern Japan. First it was about a freeway accident near Musudafu involving a motorcycle and, funnily enough, a pair of dark, suspicious-looking cars. Those words made Izuku flinch. Not to mention people hearing explosions in the nearby mountains as well, along with sightings of lasers blasting into the skies above not long after. Young Midoriya, are you at Autobot headquarters? Izuku swallowed and answered. Why yes. And that was all that All Might needed to hear. And I wonder, have you perhaps engaged any Decepticon forces in Japan today? Well, not directly. But there is something going on. I can tell just by the tone in your voice. The boy winced at that. Damn, he's good. Izuku took a deep breath and made his case. All Might, there's a reasonable explanation for all of this, I promise you. There were 3 mini-cons that woke up from stasis in the mountains and we had to pull off a quick rescue mission. Oh, I see, that does sound important. All Might approved. Did you succeed? And what about Optimus and the others? Have they returned successfully as well? Izuku nodded. Yes to both. But, well, let's just say that something else happened. Something pretty big, that you'll have to bring Aizawa and Mr. King over for. There was a long pause on the other end before All Might muttered, don't tell me. For a response, Izuku pulled the phone away from his ear, and held it up to the 1B students with an apologetic gaze. I think it's best if you rip the band-aid off now. Trust me, better sooner than later. With a begrudging agreement, Itsuka steadied herself and spoke into the phone. Hello, All Might, sir, this is Itsuka Kendo of Class 1B. Me and my new friend Flare Up were the ones involved with the freeway incident, sorry. Why young Kendo? And who's this Flare Up? Hey, it's Setsuna Tagake, too. The lizard tail splitter user greeted. Along with Tetsu and Abara Shiozaki here as well. You, wanna know why the mini-cons in the mountains activated in the first place, Mr. All Might? Oh good lord. All Might sighed on the other end. All of you, stay put, I've gotta get your homeroom teachers. 1/2 hour full of dread later, the sound of an approaching car engine could be heard coming through the woods just outside the Autobot base, where everyone had been gathered together. From the forest path, a small crimson car could be seen rolling down toward the group of Autobots, mini-cons and humans, and up in the sky, they could all see All Might falling straight down at them. Needless to say, the sight made the 1B students all shake apprehensively, before feeling beads of nervous sweat trailing down their foreheads. As a result, High Wire, Sir Shock and Grinder were also quite anxious, though the mini-cons still stood by their human companions firmly. Kyoka leaned over to them and whispered, "Don't worry, this is just the hard part. And I doubt it'll be that Kendo." Everyone flinched the moment Vlad King practically burst out the driver's side of the car, the Fang Blood Quirk user having nearly kicked the door off. Tetsu, Tagake, Shiozaki. Just what in the blasted hell is going on here? Oh god, we're dead. Tetsu leaned forward, cradling his head in his hands. It was nice knowing you guys. Eijiro set a hand to the steel user's shoulder in support. Come on dude, straighten up and face it like a man. Everything will be fine, like Jiro's sigh, but then, from out the driver's side, Aizawa stepped out, and he did not appear to be in a good mood. On the plus side, his bandages were all off, and he only had his arm in a sling. But the bad part about that was that he was using his quirk on all of them, disabling their own quirks as his eyes glowed red and his hair stood up on end to make for the scariest glare ever. And it was just to reinforce the fact that they had nowhere to run. Never mind, we're dead. Abara cried out, her hands flying up to hide her face. Oh, tell me when it's over. Hey, we're not goners yet, Shiozaki. Denki reassured, stealing his own nerves so he could support her. It's going to be okay, I promise. But apparently, Aizawa managed to hear that. Don't start making promises you can't keep, Kaminari. Eraserhead deactivated his quirk, but kept his scowl about him as he and Vlad approached, with All Might landing next to them soon after. So, care to tell us what exactly happened for all of this to have occurred? He made sure to gesture to the 4-1B students to accentuate his point. Mr. Aizawa, please, this was all a big mistake. Izuku pleaded. That made the erasure user narrow his eyes at the boy. Is it? Because given your track record, problem child, we might as well reveal the Autobots' existence to the whole world if these mistakes keep happening. And now, let's not get too heated here. All Might stepped in between the two. After all, keeping a secret as big as the Autobots is far from easy, that much I know. He turned to his protege with a hopeful if desperate smile. Now, young Midoriya, if you would please explain what happened from the beginning. Izuku was about to do so, but then Itsuka sidestepped him and took the reins instead. If you would, All Might, sir, I'd actually like to explain for myself and my friends. I promise, I'll be sure to tell you nothing but the truth. Aizawa and All Might were taken aback by her boldness, but Vlad was more than ready to approve. I'll allow it. He nodded to his fellow teachers. Miss Kendo here is a very truthful and dependable student. It's the reason I decided to appoint her as class rep in the first place. He crossed his arms, giving the redhead an expectant gaze. Well, Miss Kendo, you have the floor. Thank you, sir. Itsuka bowed, taking a deep breath before she started. So, it all started like this, and from there, over the next several minutes, Itsuka explained their situation to the three adults, with Tetsu, Abara and Setsuna chiming in with extra details if so inclined. By the end of her long-winded explanation, Itsuka had to take another breath before making her conclusion. And so, there you have it. Basically, this all boils down to just a ton of flukes happening all at once and everything just being out of our control. She glanced over to Aizawa in particular. None of this was Midoriya's fault. There was just a ton of mistakes made that we had no idea of foreseeing. Aizawa hummed at that. I see, and you'll stand by all of that. Of course, sir. Tetsu stood up straight, putting on a brave expression. If you're to blame anyone, blame us for sticking our noses where they didn't belong. Obara added confidently. Setsuna grinned as she pointed out, plus, to be fair, if we hadn't rescued those mini-cons, the Decepticons would have gotten them instead, so if anything, we helped out more today than anything, hee. Oof. She was elbowed in the ribs by Itsuka almost immediately. But that's not the point here. Itsuka straightened up before giving a full bow to the adults. The point is that, if you're going to place the blame on anyone, put it on us. Not on any of them. The rest of her friends bowed as well. We're ready to receive any punishment you have in mind. Vlad raised an eyebrow at that. Punishment? Who said you were getting punished? At that, the quartet snapped their heads up incredulously. This isn't school, you kids aren't getting punished for anything. Of course, as your teacher, I am concerned for all of you, but outside of school we have no jurisdiction to give you any sort of penalty. Even Aizawa agreed with this. The most we can do is give you a slight reprimand for your actions, but in reality, the main concern here is that you're all safe. He set his sights up toward Flare Up with a cocked brow. And I'm hoping that the Autobots can keep you safe from here on out. Flare Up offered a smirk back to the teacher. Hey, you got any idea who you're talking to, mate? She jerked a thumb toward her chest. If ya don't, the name's Flare Up, and I'm pretty much a natural when it comes to protecting. Well, if your protecting us is any good as you getting into trouble, I'll have nothing to worry about that. Eraserhead's remark made Flare Up puff her cheeks irritably, but he ignored it to address Optimus instead. All jokes aside, I want you to put a firm lid on this, Prime. I think that you and I can both agree that there can't be any more room for error here. If incidents like these keep happening, then humanity will likely find out about you all sooner rather than later. Optimus gave a single nod back. You are correct, Mr. Aizawa. It is best if we make certain that events like these never happen again. His optics trailed over to his medic. Red alert, effective immediately. I want the planetary sensors being monitored at all times in preparation for any Autobot signals approaching Earth. He raised a single finger, adding, and if they have a live comm link, be sure to contact it. Red gave a salute. Of course, Optimus. Should I detect any, I'll be sure that you are the first to know. He turned to Springer with an uncomfortable look. Hopefully those situations won't result in something similar to Springer's situation, though. Springer himself couldn't help but wince. Yeah, that's right. The cons managed to hijack our comm and that's how they were able to latch onto me and make the ul switcheroo. He placed his hands on his hips, lowering his head in thought. Damn, could they do something like that again? I doubt it. Windblade shook her head. Knowing Starscream, he only had one shifter among his crew, and you made sure to blow him up, so they can't pull the same trick twice. And even then, we'd know to be on the lookout for something like that. Bulkhead furthered, smashing his hand into his palm. Con scum won't be setting foot in our base again if I've got anything to say about it. All Might threw his head back, giving a hearty laugh. Ahahaha. Well, I'm certainly glad that this situation was resolved relatively easily. However, the question remains. His attention was brought back to the 1B students. Now, I'm fully aware that you all have formed very fast bonds among the Autobot ranks, the the Street Action Mini-Cons and Flare Up next. And in turn, those who you have formed bonds with have sworn to protect you. But I must ask, are the four of you comfortable with this? Remember, this is a change that will affect your lives completely, both in and out of school, so be mindful of your choice. Itsuka, Obara, Setsuna, and Tetsu all looked to one another before collectively nodding, not even having to think about it. All Might, sir, we're willing to accept those risks. Itsuka extended her arm over toward the 1A students in May. If these guys can help keep a secret, then so can we. There's a lot riding on the line here, and I promise that we won't disappoint you. I certainly hope not. Aizawa groaned. Otherwise, this is liable to turn into a giant mess. Vlad grimaced slightly at his fellow teacher. Have a little faith there, Aizawa. After all, unlike your students, mine don't get into trouble often, so this is a rarity for them. The dark-haired man furrowed his brow back to his taller colleague. Are you insinuating something, King? Oh, goodness, no. Vlad shifted his eyes away. It certainly sounds like it. Well, it isn't. Optimus made a point to raise his volume when he spoke up. Ahem, if we could please avoid getting into senseless quarrels, perhaps we can focus on what is truly important. The two men reserved themselves to silence after that. Thank you. Now, Mr. King, for the safety of your students, I will arrange for their guardians to do what I have Bumblebee and RC doing for Mr. Aizawa's, picking them up directly after school. Is that suitable for you? It is. So long as they're safe, that's all I care about. Vlad approved. Flare-Up's optics lit up in excitement, whirling around to her human friend. You hear that, Itsuka? I'm gonna be picking you up from now on. Isn't that great? Haha, yeah, it does. Just so long as I'm able to get to my shift on time on the days I need to work. Itsuka reminded. Momo's eyebrows rose up at that. Oh, Kendo, I had no idea that you had a job. Where do you work? At one of the McDonald's in Musudafu. The one near the business district. Itsuka wore an amused grin and giggled a little. Hee, to be honest, I actually started working there so that I could save up for my dream motorcycle. She then pointed to Flare Up, who was also giggling at the situation. But guess who literally transforms into my dream bike, complete with the correct color scheme? Haha. MHA. No way. Denki and Eijiro laughed as well. That's some crazy coincidence. Mina tilted her head to the 1B representative. So wait, if you've technically got your dream bike now, is there any reason for you to keep working there? Yeah. Itsuka raised a brow. Money's still money, Ishido. The pink girl gave a shrug. I mean, I guess, but I'm just saying, you could have way more fun here at the base with us if you freed yourself from the shackles of the fast food industry. As tempting as that sounds, I'm going to have to take a pass. The redhead declined. Once I graduate and go pro, then I'll resign, but until then, I like being responsible at my job. And besides, it gives me something to do that makes me money, so I'm not complaining. Mina, Irio and Denki all stared incredulously at her. Wow, you and Iida would have so much to talk about. Oh, hey, that's right. Tetsu piped up. You guys mentioned that Iida and Uraraka know about all this too, right? Where are they? RC decided to answer that one. Well, Ochako's currently back at her apartment with her parents. They decided to come visit, so she's spending some time with them. She wore a happy grin and placed a hand on her chest. In fact, I will be accompanying the three of them to dinner tonight, so that should be fun. Ah, that's so cool. Kyoka said. Glad to hear, Chako's having some quality time with her mom and dad. But then, her expression faltered when she remembered the state that their other friend was in. As for Iida, though, she turned to the 1B students. I'm sure that you guys heard about the incident with Ingenium, right? Oh, my word, yes. Abara affirmed worriedly. The hero killer has struck again, and Ingenium, he is Iida's brother, is he not? Strongarm pursed her lips, remembering what had occurred at the hospital earlier that day. Yes, and unfortunately, he won't be able to walk again. The news was passed to Tenya just today and, he's still trying to cope. Seeing the concern of the 1B students, Strongarm directed her attention back to the number 1 hero. All Might, did Tenya get home safely after lunch? He did, I saw to it. All Might confirmed, his voice taking on a somber tone. I gave him some words of encouragement, but, I could see a darkness behind his eyes, and when he smiled at me, I could tell that it wasn't genuine. He gave his students a single nod. All of you, please watch over him. Your class representative is in a very delicate state right now, so it's important that he be surrounded by friends come Thursday. Izuku and the others all returned the gesture. Of course, All Might. We'll be sure to be there for him. The hero set a hand on his protege's shoulder. Thank you, young Midoriya. I'm certain that he will appreciate it. His gaze settled back on the 1B students. As for the 4 of you, there is much that I have to fill you in on, but that can come at a later date. I'm sure that you've had your fair share of excitement for the day, so perhaps tomorrow would be better. Okay. Itsuka muttered in confusion. Not sure what that means, but if you say so, all might, sir. Aizawa let out a heavy breath, placing his hands in his pockets. Alright, so now that we've got everything cleared up, is there anything else that we need to know about? Anything important? Oh, actually, there is. Flare-Up chimed in again, getting everybody's attention. It's something really important. In fact, it's a very vital piece of information that I've been waiting for the right time to tell you all. With everyone's interest piqued, they gave Flare-Up their undivided focus. Well, don't leave us in suspense, Flare. Sideswipe urged. What's going on? Before she answered that, Flare-Up held up a single finger to her comrades. Okay, just a word of warning, you might wanna find a seat, because you're gonna be blown away with the info I've got. After the teens sat themselves down, along with a few Autobots joining in, she began to divulge what she knew. Okay, so not long after I got Optimus Prime's message, I received another transmission from quite the unexpected source, Kimia. All at once, several Autobots gasped in shock. K. Kimia. RC uttered. ZRTK, holy Toledo. Bumblebee's hands shot up to his head. ZKRT, where the heck did that come from? Okay, immediate question right off the bat. Setsuna raised her hand. The heck is Kimia? Optimus provided her answer just as quickly. The city of Kimia was an Autobot-controlled settlement back on Cybertron. It was a scientific colony that provided both invaluable technology for the Autobots and a reliable stronghold during the war thanks to the massive walls and protective energon grid set up around it. He lowered his head a bit as he recalled further. However, in the latter days of the war for Cybertron, the Decepticons finally found a way in, but we were all left stunned when the city itself was gone as soon as they discovered it. Whoa, seriously? Kyoka asked. How does a city just up and disappear? Red Alert shook his head. It doesn't, which is what left all of us baffled. At first, we had thought it had blown up given the scorched land where it once was. But it was far too clean for that to have been the case. There was no cloaking device either, so we had ruled it out as an unsolvable mystery. The medic raised an eyelash to Flare-Up. Which is why I'm questioning how you were contacted by it, Flare-Up. You're absolutely sure on that? Flare-Up nodded enthusiastically. Oh, you betcha. And they received Prime's message, too, and they said they'd make a beeline straight for Earth as soon as possible. Hold up, a beeline. Jazz repeated. Ya make it sound like the city's floating through space or something. But then, the first lieutenant saw Flare-Up's cheeky grin, and that's when he put two and two together. You can't be serious. Oh, I am. Flare-Up winked. Guess who managed to get the city airborne and into space before the cons could even think to attack it? All at once, Red Alert's jaw fell open in realization. Of course, only he could manage to pull off such a thing. And before anyone knew it, Red started laughing, placing a hand on his face. Ha ha ha. Brainstorm, you stupid genius. How in the world did you do it? Windblade narrowed her optics suspiciously. Yeah, how did he do it, Flare? Her two-wheeled friend felt slightly nervous as the city speaker's fingers fidgeted at her sides. I've got a sneaking feeling I know the answer, but please, enlighten us if you can. Hee, Flare-Up stammered. Turns out that when the city was a Titan all along, you can get creative. I knew it. Windblade's wings burst out from her back, their VTOL fans spinning and glowing in her frustration, much to everyone's shock. That short-wired brainiac decided it was a good idea to mess with a Titan's T-Cog. Does he have any inkling of how temperamental those things can be? How in the world did he do something like that without a city speaker's help? Strongarm stepped up behind the red and black femme, placing a hand on her shoulder. Whoa, Windblade, let's not fly off the handle too early, here. Remember, it's Brainstorm we're talking about. Optimus joined in trying to calm Windblade down. She is correct, Windblade. Knowing Brainstorm, I'm certain that he knew the risks in performing such a feat. However, given that the Titan managed to take to Starship mode successfully, it's safe to assume that the Titan itself is unharmed. Her gaze was brought up to him and he kept going. I do not approve of Brainstorm's actions. However, even you must recognize that this is the best case scenario. Windblade pouted, still upset, but less so after being talked down. With a small grumble, she retracted her wings and stormed off. Grr, when that bot gets to Earth, I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind, but as she was leaving, she noticed that Momo was staring at her worriedly, which made her instantly do a 180. Oh, sorry, Momo. I may have gotten a bit carried away there. It's just that when it comes to the safety of Titans, it's something that I'm very passionate about as a city speaker. Oh, it's okay, Windblade, I totally understand. Momo assured. But, a Titan, a transformer that can become an entire city and even a starship, is now coming to Earth. Sure is. Flare Up confirmed with a thumbs up. Pretty exciting, in night. If by exciting, you mean very concerning. Izuku clarified. Optimus, what are we going to do? A Cybertronian city arriving on Earth is going to be really problematic. All Might echoed Izuku's thoughts. I agree, young Midoriya. Optimus, what are we going to do once this Titan arrives? Optimus closed his optics in thought before he raised his head up to the sky, with several others followed suit. They had no idea how long it would take for the Titan to arrive, nor did they know any place on Earth where it would be able to land without attracting human attention. For the first time in a long time, Optimus Prime was at a loss for ideas. I certainly wish I had an answer for that. Chapter 40, Get Those Names. On Wednesday morning, Ochako awoke with a loud yawn and a satisfying stretch, having rather enjoyed the evening she shared with her parents and RC the night before. It had been a while since she had gotten to eat like that, at least outside of lunch rushes gourmet cooking at school, but that was a different story. There's just something satisfying about sharing a good meal with the people you care about. Ochako thought to herself as she got herself ready for the day ahead. I only hope I'll be able to help provide that for my parents in the future. But, as she took her morning shower, something else had entered her mind. The news that RC had shared with her last night after the meal. Apparently, things had gotten pretty crazy that day, and as a result, they had 9 new teammates. 4 mini-cons, a new full-sized Autobot, and 4 of their fellow students, from the next door down. Itsuka Kendo, Abara Shiozaki, Tetsu and Setsuna Tokage from Class 1B. Ochako was familiar with them, especially the 2 who had competed in the finals of the sports festival. Though she wasn't overly acquainted with them, she still saw them as nice people, and thankfully most hostilities between their classes had been quelled at the festival as well. Aside from Nito Monoma, though she was fairly certain that Guy had some deep-seated personal issues of his own. HMPH, if anything I'm sure glad he didn't find out. Ochako muttered to herself, slipping into her clothes after drying herself off. He probably wouldn't let us live it down. She walked to her front door and opened it, immediately greeted by the sight of RC down below. Morning, stranger. RC waved up. Your parents make it home safe and sound. Ochako stepped out and closed her door, making certain to lock it. Yep, they did. Around 10 o'clock last night, but they made it. She made her way down to ground level, giving her Autobot friend a nod. So, you ready to go? Sure everyone's gathering at the base bright and early to hang out and socialize. RC gave her a wink. After all, 9 new teammates is gonna be a lot to take in, so better to get used to it now, right? With a deep breath, the brunette agreed. Yeah, no kidding. Phew, it's hard to imagine, 1B students and 1A students hanging out. Probably wouldn't have been entertained a couple weeks back. She put on a bright, cheery smile, one full of optimism. But I'm really glad that we're doing it now. Can't wait to get to know them. Me either. Oh, but I should correct myself. The intelligence officer raised a pair of fingers. All but 2 of us will be there early. A certain class representative has to work her morning shift and her new guardian is gonna accompany her. Oh, Ochako tilted her head. Is it Shiozaki or Kendo? RC smirked and pointed over to the other side of the apartment complex. Take a look and see for yourself. Raising a brow, Ochako craned her head around, and her eyes widened at who she saw approaching from the opposite end of the complex. Alright, Flare, we've got plenty of time to get to McDonald's, so let's, Itsuka cut herself off when she was met with the sight of Ochako staring right back at her. Both girls locked eyes before expressions of astonishment took over their features, the 2 pointing to each other and crying out. Hua. The pink Autobot snickered, hee, figured that'd be their reaction. Kendo. Uraraka. Itsuka shook her head. What are you doing here? Ochako pointed more dramatically toward the redhead. Me. I could say the same about you. I live in this complex. That made Itsuka blink. Wait, you do? Haha. Oh, this is brilliant. The motorcycle that Itsuka was riding let out a hearty laugh as a new holoform appeared beside it, a young, brunette woman in an aviator jacket and goggles who immediately leaned on Itsuka's shoulder. I knew it couldn't be coincidence when and I literally went on the exact same path to pick you gals up this morning. She locked eyes with and winked toward Ochako. On that note, you must be Ochako. And you must be Flare Up, right? Ochako leaned forward in a bow. It's an honor to meet you. RC told me that you two are friends, so it's truly a pleasure. Ah, pleasure's all mine, love. Flare Up waved off. But please, call me, Tracy, in this form. And, I don't think I gotta remind you to call, see over there, Sadie, right? Ochako's cheeks heated up in embarrassment. Oh, shoot. Yeah, you're right, sorry. I was just distracted, she gave Itsuka a curious glacé. But, Kendo, if what you're saying is true, then. Itsuka put a hand up to her forehead. Then we've been living in the same apartment complex for months without ever noticing each other. She shook her head in disbelief. How does that happen? We've had to have taken the same train at some point, right? I mean, maybe. Ochako scratched her head. But at the same time, I can't remember if I saw you or not. It's super weird. But she shooed that thought away in favor of putting her smile back on. But hey, this is super awesome. Since we live in the same place, that'll make things a lot easier when it comes to acclimating. Ochako jogged up next to Itsuka and extended a hand. Put there, new teammate. A little laugh escaped Itsuka's lips, taken aback, but very charmed by the gravity user's greeting. Haha, if you insist. She shook Ochako's hand, but not without giving her a knowing look. But remember, we might be teammates while with the Autobots, but when it comes to our class's friendly rivalry, I'm not gonna back down. Ochako shook her head. And I don't expect you to. You're the representative after all. Just so long as you don't got to the lengths that Monoma's going, we'll be fine. That made Itsuka roll her eyes. Oh, trust me, I fully intend on keeping Monoma on a short leash. I don't know what his deal is, but I wouldn't say it's too heroic. Good to know. Ochako tilted her head. By the way, you said you were going to McDonald's. You like getting breakfast there. Oh, not that. I work part-time there, actually. Wait, seriously. Ochako's eyes widened. You have a job. Part-time or not, the fact that you've got one while still in high school is amazing. I didn't think UA would let you do that. The redhead gave a shrug and explained, well, it's not like I work a ton of hours or anything. UA allowed me to take the job, but I can only work short, 4-hour shifts and only 4 days a week. Night shifts and Sundays are out of the picture entirely so that I have more time to focus on my studies. Ituska took a deep breath, craning her head upward. You know, I hear in other countries, schools aren't so limiting on this kind of stuff. Ochako winced with a nod. Yeah, Japan's pretty strict on that, but hey, that's the way things are here. Still, she raised a brow to her new companion and neighbor. But if that's the case, then will you still be available to come to base and hang out sometimes? Oh, definitely. Itsuka assured. You can count on that. Right now, though, I've gotta get to work. She turned to Tracy and nudged her head toward the street. Come on Flare, Tracy, we've gotta go. Right you are. With a final salute, Tracy bid Ochako farewell before disappearing. Nice seeing ya, Ochako. We'll catch you and Sadie back at base. Flare Up then revved up her engine and started toward the street, her and Itsuka riding off as Ochako and Sadie waved back. Bye, gals. See you soon. Ochako beamed happily, glad to know that they now had some very capable allies. Something tells me that things are gonna work out just fine. I stand corrected. Thursday had arrived quicker than any of them had imagined, and that meant it was back to school for all of them. Unfortunately, it had turned out to be pretty rainy that day, and given that Flare Up and the mini-cons were all open-air vehicles, that meant that the 1B students all had to arrive in the soaking wet downpour. Thankfully, Abara, Setsuna and Tetsu still used the bullet train for most of the way there, but still, getting from the station to Ua proved to be drenching for all of them, even with raincoats. And Tetsu was making a big stink about it. Gah, man. Of course, it had to be raining today. The steel quirk user complained as he got off of Grinder, glaring straight at Ajiro as he and the other 1A students entered all nice and dry. Ya know, ya really could have told one of the other bots with roofs to maybe come and pick us up. Ajiro's eyes widened in a panic and he rushed up, slapping a hand over Tetsu's mouth hastily. Dude, what the hell? Don't say that kinda stuff out in the open. The hardened quirk user glanced around in a panic. What if someone heard you? Itsuka walked up and separated the two, though her focus was on her classmate. He's right, Tetsu, we can't mention you know who while we're at school, at least not in the open. She furrowed her brow when Tetsu simply scoffed, whipping his head away. Don't you remember what Aizawa said? We've got to put a cap on this stuff leaking out. If the wrong person finds out, it's all over. Yeah, I get, achoo. Tetsu hastily covered his nose as the others took a step back, all wincing in disgust. Ah, goddammit, I better not catch a cold. Setsuna sighed and sent a sympathetic gaze to the other students. Sorry about him, it's hard to rein him in sometimes. Kyoka pointed over to Ajiro with a deadpan, yeah, same goes for him. He can be a figurative and literal hardhead. Her eyes trailed over to Tetsu. In fact, both of you are more alike than you'd like to admit in that regard. We are not, the two boys echoed. Case in point. Abara sighed before noticing something. Wait, why is Iida not with you? I thought you would have picked him up. The 1A students all grimaced uncomfortably at the reminder, with Denki speaking up. Well, we tried, but he wasn't home when we got there. He eyed his other friends worriedly. We figured that he might have left for school already, but he didn't even tell us that he. Good morning, everyone. The group flinched and spun around, greeted by the sight of Tenya rushing up through the parking lot wearing a bright, yellow poncho. Just what are you all doing out here standing around? Get inside before you catch your death of cold. Aida. Izuku stepped toward the engine user as he rushed past. Why didn't you? Click click. Ah, there you all are. Before any questions could be asked, the side door of the building opened up, revealing none other than Midnight on the other side and causing Tenya to come to a sudden stop. Only he didn't stop, instead sliding along the wet asphalt until, I was wondering what all this commotion was about. Miss Midnight, watch OU, crash. The whole group let out a collective yelp as Tenya slammed straight into the side of the building, his arms and legs splayed out in all directions. Stiff as a board, he fell back first onto the ground, twitching in his self-induced pain. Midnight gasped, her hand flying to her lips. Ah, oh my goodness, Mr. Iida. Please, no running on school grounds. The young man's friends, on the other hand, began crowding around him in concern. Iida, are you hurt? Izuku asked. Ajiro reached down and grasped one of his shoulders. Come on, emergency exit, speak to us. Hawk. I am alright. Tenya rubbed his head as it continued to pulsate, knowing he had hit it on the way down. In a minor amount of pain, but I'm fine, so don't worry. His eyes then trailed upward, where he spotted the 1B students standing above him as well. Aha, I was wondering if you all would be arriving with them. Tenya stood up and met Itsuka's gaze with a small grin. Strongarm gave me all the details yesterday about what happened. I must say, I was left quite surprised. Hey, imagine being US. Setsuna jumped in before the redhead could respond. You want surprised? You should have seen our reaction when we found out. Itsuka rolled her eyes and smirked. Yes, very hilarious. She bowed her head to her fellow class rep. But it's good to finally see you, Iida. Now we've finally got the whole gang together. Mina leaned over toward Mei and murmured, still think we should call ourselves the Cyber Squad. Her fellow Pinkett smiled and giggled in agreement. Midnight came over and stood next to the two class reps, placing her hands on her hips. Indeed, I and the rest of the staff were informed by Aizawa and Vlad King yesterday as well. Her focus shifted directly to the 1B kids. And, while it's less than ideal that more people know about this secret, I don't see the harm in letting in a few others. Just so long as it doesn't get too out of hand, of course. Oh, you shouldn't worry about that, Miss Midnight. Abara cupped her hands together, intent on expressing her sincerity to her teacher. We realize the importance of keeping this a secret, so rest assured that it will be kept safe. She raised a brow in Tetsu's direction. Correct. MHA, what are y'all looking at me for, Shiozaki? Tetsu raised his hands defensively. Come now, you know why. Abara nodded when Tetsu grumbled, conceding to her point. That's what I thought. Midnight couldn't help but laugh at the scene herself, bringing her hand up near her face. Ahahaha. Oh me, oh my, don't we have a feisty group of newcomers here? She then set her sights upon the nearby flare-up and mini-cons, who were all in their vehicle modes. RC and Bumblebee were with them, of course, and Bumblebee's chassis visibly flinched when Midnight spotted them. Could it be safe to assume that our other new arrivals are just as feisty? Flare-Up responded by activating her holoform, leaning up against her motorcycle mode with an equally challenging grin. Depends on what you mean by feisty, madam. Might I ask, who would you be? My name is Nimori Kamiya, but you can call me Midnight, the teacher tilted her head. And you must be Miss Flare-Up, or, Tracy, I presume. Tracy gave her a wink. That's me. Fastest runner this side at, the Milky Way, at your service. Ooh, fast, Midnight bit her lip. I can get down with fast. The students all recoiled in dread at that before the R-rated hero then nudged her chin toward the bike, skateboard and scooter. And I'm guessing that they're the minis I heard so much about. Yes, ma'am. High Wire replied quickly. Though we ask that you not talk with us out in the open like this. We mini-cons don't have holoforms, so it's not advised that you talk with us here. Midnight understood completely. Good point. Well, I must say that it's nice to meet you all nonetheless. I hope to see more of you soon, but for now, she brought her attention back to the students once more. My main objective here is in regards to all of you. I thought I'd give you a heads up on our lesson plans today, just so that you all aren't caught off guard. All of the teens, eyes widened in curiosity. Oh, and what is that, Miss Midnight? Momo asked. With a wily smirk, Midnight chuckled again, replying, keep this under your hats, but, we'll just be choosing code names today. And just like that, everyone lost their minds. Code names. SSHHH. Midnight shushed them all immediately. What did I just say? She whispered harshly. Stay quiet about this until class, or else the surprise will be ruined for everyone else. But why are you telling us about it in the first place, Miss Midnight? Ochako stammered. I kind of feel like you're spoiling the surprise a bit. Well, because I know that most of you have already chosen your codenames back from when you rescued me from the Decepticon ship. Midnight answered, raising a finger. So I wanted to give you all a heads up just in case you had second thoughts in the time between then and now. If you feel you want to change your codename, now's the time to do so. She gave them another wink. After all, I'm going to be judging them today, so I hope you all have some good ones. With that, Midnight went to go inside the building, giving them one last nod. So, just keep that in mind and I'll see you all very soon. Ciao. The teens and Autobots were left to their devices outside in silence after that, though Tenya was going to make sure that wouldn't last. Well, now what we know what we're in for today, I suppose we should end in, He directed himself toward Flare-Up and the mini-cons, giving them a respectful bow. But before that, I must say that it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I hope to get to know the four of you more very soon. Grinder gave a small hop. Make that 4, bro. You've still got Roller back at base to meet. Tenya smiled at that. Yes, Optimus Prime's personal mini-con partner. I anticipate meeting him as well, of course. Until then. He spun around on his heel and clapped his hands together as he went for the door. Now, what say we get inside? The first bell is about to ring soon. The group followed him in, but they were still all visibly concerned. Iida, listen, if it's about my brother, you needn't worry. Tenya cut Izuku off as he lowered the hood of his poncho, still wearing his smile as he opened his locker. Everything will be fine, trust me. That's not it. Of all people, everyone was surprised when it was Mei who shouted at him. She stepped forward, her face angry but worried at the same time. Iida, we went to your house this morning to pick you up and you weren't there. You didn't call, you didn't say anything, you've been ghosting us for the past 2 days. It was at that point that Mei noticed that all eyes were on her now, rendering her a bit sheepish as she concluded. We were worried, you know. Kyoka stepped closer to the inventor, placing a hand on her shoulder as she locked a serious gaze on Tenya. Iida, trust me when I say that we understand you wanting to take some time off after what happened to your brother, but you really shouldn't just stop communicating altogether, especially when it comes to picking you up on the morning route. She's right, Iida. Itsuka concurred, joining the punk rocker. If you're going to do something different, be sure to call ahead first, otherwise, we're all left worried about you. She raised a brow at the blue-haired boy. Imagine if Strongarm had been the one sent to pick you up and you weren't there. Hearing how much she cares about you, I bet she'd be searching all across Japan for you, you know. The Class 1A representative was left rather shocked, though in hindsight, he should have expected this. To think that he would be the one on the opposite side of a lecture, complete with an outburst from Hatsume. He especially hadn't seen that coming. He took in a sharp breath and squeaked his eyes shut, abruptly bowing to all of them. Everyone, I apologize profusely. I do appreciate you giving me the time I needed these past 2 days, but my actions this morning are inexcusable. I will promise to do better, as your friend and class representative, I swear it. There was a short pause before Izuku stepped forward, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. Thank you, Iida. That's good to hear. He helped Tenya stand up straight again, staring at him with determination. And please remember, if you need anything at all, we're all here for you. Us, the bots. Even us. Itsuka chimed in, her classmates all nodding in confirmation. Different class or not, we're all teammates now. She raised a fist up to him. And as a fellow class rep, I'll be looking out for you, too, okay? I greatly appreciate that. Tenya's smile widened as he gave Itsuka a fist bump. Thank you, very much. He gave Mei a small bow of the head as well. And again, I'm sorry for making you worry. Hatsume. Mei sighed and her own smile returned as she wagged a finger at him. Just make sure you don't pull a stunt like that again, ya hear, Specs. She went up and jabbed him in the shoulder. Otherwise, I'm gonna make you my permanent guinea pig, understand? Haha, alright, I hear you loud and clear. Izuku felt a bit of hope rise in his chest when he heard his friend's laugh. It's still not 100%, but I do see some genuine happiness shining through. He glanced over to Kyoka and the two shared a nod. It'll be our mission to see Iida's smile come back, that's for sure. He took a deep breath, ready to get back on track. Alright, let's get to class, huh? Today's gonna be pretty interesting, I'm sure. Once all the teens had broken off toward their respective classes, it didn't take long for the 1A group to be greeted at the front door. Haha, there you guys are. Keita beamed in excitement, going up and slapping Izuku on the shoulder. Hey everyone, our champ is here. Immediately, everyone perked their heads up, smiling at the group as they walked in. Hey, guys, Sato waved. How are things going? You all are rather close to being late, Tokiyami commented, his arms crossed over his chest. Usually, you're the first ones here. He opened a single eye and asked, did your carpool have trouble getting to school? And no, Izuku answered. We, just got caught up in conversation downstairs. He didn't exactly feel good about lying, but for Iida's sake, he didn't mind. That stuff needs to stay personal. Well, glad you guys managed to make it, at least. Shiro piped up, leaning back in his chair with a rather unpleased look about him. Though considering you do carpool, you guys probably haven't had the pleasure of being talked to on the streets recently. That made the 8 of them tilt their heads. Huh, what do you mean, Shiro? Kirishima asked. Suyu lifted her head up from her desk and turned back to them. Ribbit, you guys really don't know. The frog quirk user pressed a finger to her chin. Wow, you guys must not get out on the streets too often. Ochako sent her a deadpan stare. Sue, you know that's not true. Now come on, what's the deal? The deal is that we're being recognized for our performances at the sports festival. Speaking up from behind, everyone's focus went straight to Shoto, who sat in his chair with slight irritation upon his brow. And to be honest, it's a bit suffocating. Don't be like that, Shoto. Keita went up and pat him on the head, making the half-cold half-hot user's grimace deepen. I think it's actually kind of fun. Even if people mainly recognize you from the whole Triceratops debacle. The moment those words passed Denki's lips, he knew he had just said something dumb. Kata's intense glare was on him in seconds, her face muscles twitching in anger at the reminder. "Forget I said anything, please," he said in a tiny voice. Kata snarled back, "I'll try." Thankfully, Toru was quick to change the subject. "People on the street were staring at me all day yesterday." She fidgeted in place awkwardly. It was honestly kinda embarrassing. In front of her, Ojiro felt a bit of sweat trickle down his forehead. Yeah, but isn't that pretty normal for you, Hagakure?" Shiro leaned over toward Ejiro and Denki, his frown still present as he jerked a thumb over his shoulder. "You guys wouldn't believe what a bunch of elementary school brats yelled at me. Lemme guess, nice try." Mina piped up, causing Shiro to throw his head back and let out a pained groan. "Ahahaha. Oh man, called it." She put a hand over her mouth in awe. But still, the fact that we're all practically celebrities after one sports festival is super cool. Mina whipped around toward Izuku, her eyes sparkling. "Midori, we totally should have taken you to Tokyo or something yesterday. Think of all the attention you'd get. You know, normally I'd be skeptical, but she's got a point, Izuku." Kyoka said with a knowing grin, nudging her friend in the side. "You're probably one of the most recognized faces in Japan right now. You've probably even got a fanbase for all we know." "Oh god, I hope not." Izuku deflated at the very suggestion. "Bad enough that I've got this as a permanent reminder of the festival." He lifted up his right hand, now out of the bandages, revealing that some of his fingers were now just slightly crooked, and there were a few scars on it as well. "I don't need a fanbase on top of that, thank you. My social anxiety couldn't take it." Kyoka chuckled and pat her friend on the shoulder. "Hee, don't worry, dude, I'm just messin'." Izuku rolled his eyes. "Yeah, well when are you not, messin'?" The perplet winked up at him. "Whenever I feel like it." Hee, but then, out the corner of her eye, Kyoka spotted him. A certain head of spiky, ashen blonde hair sitting in his usual spot with his head lowered. Speaking of mess, though. Izuku craned his head and saw whom she was referring to, Katsuki Bakugo. Sitting in silence, shockingly enough. This was definitely not like him at all. He glanced toward his friends, who were all sharing reluctant gazes with him, Kyoka especially. Almost as if telling him not to tempt the sleeping lion. He stepped forward, ready to tempt the sleeping lion. "Oh lord, he's doomed," Momo muttered to herself. Izuku took a deep breath as he approached Bakugo's desk, ready for anything. "Okay, first time talking since the sports festival. Should be easy, right?" He swallowed his fear as he came to a stop and opened his mouth to speak, only for Katsuki to beat him to the punch. "Deku. Hey, Kachan." Katsuki's red eyes shifted back to him. He wasn't particularly happy, but he wasn't filled with unbridled rage either. The lack of explosive passion only served to rock Izuku's foundation more. "Listen, not in the mood to talk, so I think it's in your best interest to leave me alone right now." That response was, not what he was expecting. There were no derogatory terms, no loud shouting, nothing. Of course, it still wasn't a particularly kind response, but it was very dangerously reserved. Did he really break Kachan? Alright, if you want to be left alone, I can respect that. See ya. And with that, he turned on his heel and marched back to his friends, who were all wide-eyed in disbelief. "You guys heard that?" Izuku whispered. "How could I not?" Kyoka wiggled her earphone jacks. "Dude, Bakugo just, kinda gave you the cold shoulder. And it was only mildly rude." Momo pondered as well. What happened to him? The man's pride has been dealt a huge blow. Mina concluded, tapping her fingers together. "It's like whenever Vegeta get beat by Goku and got knocked down a peg." The group gave her an incredulous look. "Wow, we're seriously going with that comparison, Ejiro muttered. "It's the only one I got." The spiky redhead sighed before setting his eyes on the guy who he hesitated to call his friend. In any case, seems like Bakugo's still feelin' the aftermath of the festival pretty hard. He raised a brow over to Izuku. "Think anything you said might have gotten through to him?" "I can't be sure right now." Izuku shrugged. "But what I do know is that Kachan isn't acting like himself, so," he gave Ejiro a hopeful, puppy dog stare. "Maybe a certain someone could go over to his place and cheer him up when he gets the chance." Ejiro deadpanned at that, but sighed in surrender. Yeah, I did say I'd try my best to do that, huh? Well, I'll see what I can do, man. For the sake of both of ya. Izuku was about to thank him when the door to the classroom suddenly slid open, revealing Aizawa on the other side. Morning. The class all quickly took their seats and returned his greeting as he entered. Tsuyu was quick to point out their teacher's lack of mummification. Ribbit. Mr. Aizawa, you don't have bandages anymore. That's good news. Aizawa scratched his face, directly under the new crescent-shaped scar underneath his eye. The old lady went a little overboard in her treatment. Anyway, we have a big class today, on hero informatics. And just like that, Aizawa could see a chill of dread go through almost all of his students, aside from the ones who were in the know about the Autobots. HMPH, Midnight must have told them ahead of time. Of course, with that frustrating thought, he continued, you need codenames. Time to pick your hero identities. The students immediately pulled a 180, some even jumping out of their seats and yelling, this is gonna be totally awesome. The erasure quirk user gave a warning glare, activating his power so that everyone would sit down. This is related to the Pro Hero Draft picks I mentioned on Monday after the festival. Normally, students don't have to worry about the draft until their second or third year, but your class is different. He scanned his eyes across the children's faces, seeing looks of joy, anticipation, and nervousness. In fact, by extending offers to first years like you, pros are essentially investing in your potential. Any offers can be rescinded if their interest in you dies down. Oh no. In her seat, Keita couldn't help but fidget anxiously, keeping her head down to keep everyone from seeing her worry. Damn it, with how many pros saw me go berserk out on the field, I probably got no offers at all. Her thoughts went to another hero in particular, a certain dragon lady who had rescued her so many years ago. Let alone any from her. Seeing a transformation quirk go out of control like that probably didn't impress her in the least. So you're saying that we'll still have to prove ourselves once we've been recruited? Toru guessed. Correct. Aizawa confirmed in kind as he lifted a remote control. Now, here are the totals for those of you who got offers. With one click of a button, a holographic screen came up on the chalkboard, displaying the results of the draft, and they were quite surprising. Todoroki 4123. Midoriya 4012. Bakugo 3556. Kiryu 450. Iida 360. Yaoyorozu 301. Kirishima 272. Kaminari 210. Jiro 150. Uraraka 127. Ishido 68. 04. Izuku's jaw nearly broke through his desk. 4012. That's the number of pro-hero agencies that were interested in him. I think I'm gonna faint, and he very nearly did, the greenette almost falling straight out of his seat if it weren't for Kyoka jabbing him in the elbow with her jack. Gia. Aizawa's sights went straight to Izuku, furrowing his brow. Midoriya, stay awake. This is important. Yes sir, Mr. Aizawa. Sorry, I was just overwhelmed. Izuku craned his head back, smiling gratefully to his best friend. Thanks, Kyoka. No problem. Kyoka beamed as she smacked Izuku on the shoulder. But hey, look at that. Way to go, Green Bean. Ahem. Aizawa cleared his throat, making sure they were both paying attention as she thumbed over to the board. Normally, in past years, it's been more spread out. But, as you can see, there's a pretty big gap this time. Denki threw his head back in despair. Come on, that's no fair. The top three are so op, it hurts. Mina whipped her head around to glare at him. You think that's unfair? Think about Kaminari. She leaned over and got right in his face, holding up one single finger up to his nose. I was one number away from the magic meme number. 1, I tell you. Oh, for the love of, Ishido. Tenya chastised. Get your mind out of the gutter and, ow. Without warning, he was suddenly grasped by the shoulders from behind, Uraraka shaking him frantically as she cried tears of joy. Ka. What is going on? Stifling back a sob, Ochako managed to cry out, People want us. Ha ha ha. I know. Kyoka put a hand to her chin in thought. Still, it's kinda surprising. Todoroki got the most votes ahead of you, Broccoli Boy. She leaned forward, peering past Izuku's shoulder. Any idea why? Izuku pursed his lips, knowing that there were likely several reasons. But there was one idea that sprang to mind, my best guess. I'm thinking that not many people would have been too thrilled working with someone whose quirk is so powerful that it breaks his bones, but still, the fact that I still got that many is crazy to think about. Izuku glanced over to Bakugo, who didn't seem all too happy about the fact that he was in third. On the other hand, a certain Soro Parts user was rather thrilled by the sight. She might not have gotten the massive amount of votes that Izuku, Shoto or even Bakugo got, but the fact that she got over 400 was still staggering for her. Wow, that's a lot more than I was expecting. You sound shocked, Momo said from behind, offering a smile to the gray-skinned girl. Keita, what happened at the sports festival was unfortunate, but remember, people love dinosaurs. It's only natural that you're one of the more popular ones on that list. Thanks Yaomomo, I appreciate that. Keita smiled back to her before concentrating on her best friend, who sat directly next to Momo in the next aisle of seats. But of course, I'm not surprised that Shoto's at the top of the pack. Your quirk's so powerful, it's no wonder people want ya. Shoto, however, wasn't too convinced himself. Still, that didn't stop him from smiling to his best friend. Thanks for that, Keita, but, he furrowed his brow back at the screen. A lot of these offers are probably because of my father. Yes, quite the charming man. Momo said sarcastically with an eye roll, glancing out the window with distaste. Given what he said during Todoroki and Midoriya's match yesterday, I'm definitely glad that the Autobots don't see him too often. It was at that moment that Aizawa continued on. Now, despite these results, you'll all be interning with pros, got that? Even those of you who didn't get any offers. Now that managed to take everybody by surprise. Wait, so, everyone's gonna be interning? Mina asked. Yes. You all have already gotten to experience combat with real villains during the attack on the USJ facility. The Erasure Quirk user explained. But it'll still be helpful watching pros at work. Up close and personal, in the field, firsthand. Sato pumped an eager fist at that. And to do that, we're gonna need hero names. Ochako swung her arm up with vigor. Things are suddenly getting a lot more fun. Aizawa gave a small sigh before moving forward. These hero names will likely be temporary, but take them seriously. Otherwise. Slam. You'll have hell to pay later. The entire class all gave a collective gasp, with almost everyone's eyes focused directly on the ravishing dominatrix heroine who had just entered the room. A lot of the guys were especially enamored with her presence. What you picked today could be your codename for life. Midnight said as she sauntered into the room, her red glasses up on her forehead as her hands rested behind her head. You'd better be careful, or you'll be stuck with something utterly indecent. Yeah, she's got a good point. Aizawa affirmed as she stepped up next to him at his desk. Midnight is going to have final approval over your hero names. He reached under the desk and took out his sleeping bag, internally flashing back to his own time in UA where, of all people, Present Mike had been the one to choose his hero name for him. It's not my forte. Midnight gave the students a little wink. I hope to hear plenty of good names from all of you today. I'm sure that your young, creative minds will come up with plenty of interesting ideas for me to go through. Just remember, the name you give yourself will be important. Aizawa made sure to stress as he climbed into his bag. It helps reinforce your image and shows what kind of hero you want to be in the future. Your code name tells people exactly what you represent. So be sure to choose carefully. After securely wrapping himself up in his sleeping bag, Aizawa leaned himself up against the wall and drifted off to sleep, quietly snoring as Midnight took out some small white boards. Alright class, take these and pass them down to the seat behind you. Once some of you have your hero names, tell me and we'll get this started. Several minutes went by as Midnight allowed everyone a decent amount of time to think on their choices. All the while, she reveled in the memories of choosing her own name for the first time. The R-rated hero, Midnight. The witching hour, where the most debaucherous things are liable to happen. She had to resist from squirming in place, but after a few more minutes, she spoke to the children before her. Alright now, students, who among you is ready to share? That took everyone by surprise, including those allied with the Autobots. What? We're presenting these? Eijiro screamed in his head. Oh great. Zero grimaced. Who's got the balls to go first? As if to answer his question, none other than Aoyama stood up and took to the front desk. Though to be honest, not many of them were surprised. The young, flamboyant blonde rich boy was always eager to show off how much he wanted to shine. Hold your breath. The shining hero, he raised his whiteboard up proudly, showing his new name in English lettering. My name is, I cannot stop twinkling. Mon Amy, you cannot deny my sparkle. Silence permeated through the room, but on the inside, no one could believe it. Seriously. Midnight, though, was quick to offer her services. It'll be better this way. She took the whiteboard and made her edits. Take out the I, and shorten the cannot to can't see. It's stunning, mademoiselle. Aoyama agreed proudly. She likes it. The rest of the class echoed before Sato spoke up. Also, you're not really French, are you? That has to be an act. Okie dokie, me next. Mina bounced up out of her seat and toward the front desk, presenting her chosen name. The acid hero, Alien Queen. She wore a knowing smirk as she eyed Midnight. Well, what'd you think? The R-rated hero's eyebrow twitched in frustration. As much as she hated to admit it, she told herself that she wouldn't force any of the kids with pre-chosen code names to change theirs if they didn't want to. After all, they had chosen them to rescue her. It would be remiss of her to criticize them on that. Well, it's certainly quite striking, even if it does share the name of a movie monster. Mina's smile became cheeky at that. Yeah, I know, but I like to think that not all aliens are terrifying monsters and some might be friendly. I mean, it is a big galaxy, ya know. She ignored the dangerous warning looks she was getting from her friends, but she could feel them. I can commend that thinking, Miss Ishido. Midnight affirmed as Mina skipped back to her seat. So, who's next? Suyu was next to raise her hand. Ribbit, I think I've got one. Okay if I go next. Midnight was more than happy to let the frog girl have the stand. I've had this name in mind since grade school. She set her board up and proclaimed, Rainy Season Hero, Froppy. Ah, that's delightful. Midnight approved with a clap. It makes you sound so approachable. What a great example of a name everyone will love. The class was more than willing to let their support of Suyu's name known, especially after the last two suggestions, Froppy. 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 They chanted. Hey, I've got mine, too. Eijiro spoke up, having gained the confidence to show his off. Midnight gestured to the podium and he presented it proudly. The sturdy hero. My name is Red Riot. Red Riot. Midnight repeated before realizing, oh, I see. You're paying homage to the chivalrous hero, Crimson Riot, correct? Eijiro sheepishly rubbed his neck. Hey, yeah, he may be kinda old school, but someday, I wanna be just like he was. Crimson was my idol. If you're bearing the name of someone you admire, you have that much more to live up to. Midnight pointed out. I accept the challenge, then. The hardening user pumped a fist. Back in their seats, Denki took a deep breath, ready to present his, before Kyoka suddenly tapped him on the shoulder. Jiro, what's up? The punk rocker snickered and explained. Alright Kaminari, this is your last chance. Last chance for what? Her smirk widened. Last chance to change your name. You sure you don't wanna be called Jamming Yay, huh? Hee. Gah. Oh come on, Jiro, stop messing with me. Denki grumbled as Kyoka abruptly stood up, the perplet giving a laugh as she went to the front desk. This allowed Denki to get a good view of Izuku, who was trying to hold back his own laughter. Dude, seriously. Not cool, bro. Once Kyoka got to the front, she put up her own whiteboard. The hearing hero. I'm Earphone Jack. Midnight gave a thumbs up. Now that's a good one. The teacher also took notice of Izuku doing the same, though he went the extra mile and gave 2 thumbs up. Oh, that boy is so into her, it's almost criminal. Next came Shoji, whose name was rather interesting, the tentacle hero, Tentacle. The multi-armed teen said, using a mouth that spawned on one of said tentacles. Ah, I see. Midnight approved. I like what you're doing with that portmanteau. Taking the word, tentacle, and combining it with the Japanese word for octopus, teiko. It's very clever. Things began going into rapid fire starting with Zero. The taping hero, Cellophane. That's on the nose. Good work. Ojiro flexed his tail for emphasis on his name. Martial arts hero, Tailman. No surprise with that one, I guess. Sato wore a bright grin when he said his chosen name. I'm the sweets hero, Sugarman. Perfect. Very literally sweet. As he stepped onto the podium, Denki wore a cocky smirk while presenting his hero name. The stun gun hero, I am Chargebolt. He winked and pointed a finger gun out to his classmates. Pretty electric, don't ya think? Midnight couldn't help but grasp her shoulders as goosebumps went through her. Oomph, makes me all tingly. Toru stepped up and announced hers next. The stealth hero, Invisible Girl. That suits you incredibly well, my dear. Midnight commended, much to Toru's delight as she skipped back to her seat. Now, who's next? Momo raised her hand. Me, if you'd please. The rich beauty walked up to the front of her class and presented her name with dignity. I hope I can live up to this name, the everything hero. I am Kriti. Creative, Midnight emphasized. Next up was the youngest Todoroki, and his name was rather lackluster. Shoto. Midnight blinked at the sight of just his first name on the whiteboard. Just your real name, is that it? Yeah, well, if you ever decide on a new one, you still have the opportunity to decide. Midnight watched as the disinterested boy went back to his seat, leaving her feeling a bit cold. That boy has a lot more on his mind than just picking a hero name, I can say that much. She couldn't dwell on that too much longer, though. There was still a quarter of the class left. Alright, next up. Tokiyami took that as his opportunity to present his jet black hero, Tsukuyomi. The way the bird-headed young man said that even sounded dark, making Midnight let out a sensual hum. God of the night. Excellent. But then, from the back of the class, Kota nervously shuffled up to present his. The large young man with the craggy, rock-like head said nothing as he took to the podium, blushing as he showed his hero name to the class. Midnight peered past him to get a good look at it. The petting hero, Anima, her hands flew up to her cheeks at the name. So cute. I'm all about it. The next name, however, was anything but cute. King Explosion Murder. Everyone was wide-eyed and aghast at the words that came out of Bakugo's mouth, the ashen blonde proudly displaying his hero name. I'm gonna have to say no. Midnight said firmly. What'd you mean? Bakugo shouted. It fits me perfectly. The other students deadpanned at the familiar behavior. There was the old Bakugo, almost like he had never left. However, Eijiro saw this as a golden opportunity. He was familiar enough with him to know how he communicated, so he put on a joking smirk and pointed up to Katsuki. Hey, why don't ya be Explosion Boy? Ha ha ha. Bakugo's expression was still irritant, but he didn't seem as angry when he called the redhead out. Oh, clam up, Kirishima. Seriously, not funny. Come on man, can't take a joke. If that's your idea of a joke, why don't we go outside so I can show ya how I came up with my name? Eijiro furrowed his brow, keeping his smirk. A spar. Any time, any day, anywhere, man. Alright, we can save that for training. Midnight urged, getting between the two boys before nodding to Katsuki. Young Bakugo, I urge you to rethink yours, if you would. The blonde grumbled as he stomped back to his desk, his face twitching in annoyance. From there, it was Uraraka's turn next, and while she seemed anxious, she mustered up all the confidence she could to go up nonetheless. This is the name I thought of. The gravity hero, Uravity. Midnight clapped instantly. Oh, I just love that. Great work. With a round of applause from the class, Uraraka sheepishly returned to her seat, leaving Nimori to sigh. Well, to be honest, choosing names is going faster than I thought. All we have left is young Bakugo, who needs to rethink his, along with Midoriya, Iida and, She felt a tap on her shoulder, leading her to spin on her heel and see Keita standing right behind her. Yes, Miss Kiryu, are you ready to present? Why yeah, I am. Keita stammered as she stepped behind the desk, taking a deep breath. Alright, so, just to preface this, I know that this name might be a bit simple. Maybe even a little too on the nose. She scanned the class and saw a slew of curious eyes on her, all waiting in anticipation. But ever since I realized I wanted to be a hero, I knew this name had to be for me. She flipped her whiteboard over, revealing her name. The Mesozoic hero. My name is Keitasaurus. There was a short pause before Midnight gave her ruling on the moniker. Miss Kiryu, when it comes to names, I'm a firm believer that simplicity is key. The hero name you chose is easy to say, catchy, and most importantly, easy to remember. The teacher winked and gave a thumbs up. You nailed it. Good job. The cheer from the classroom was more than enough reinforcement for Keita to start feeling at ease, letting out a breath before bowing to her teacher. Thank you, Miss Midnight. With that, she went back to her desk, seeing Shoto giving his own supportive smile. However, Keita simply raised a brow and smirked back. Oh, so you're gonna say my name is good without coming up with one of your own. That's different and you know it. Shoto retorted. Is not. Keita reached over and gently shoved his head down. After school, you and I are gonna brainstorm hero names for you, mister. Alright, but don't expect much progress. That got a laugh out of some of the students, though while they were all having fun, Tenya was sitting in his seat and conflicted on what to do. The whiteboard in front of him was still empty, no words to be found as what his brother said the other day still rang in his mind. I think the hero ingenium is finished. At least for me. That's why, I want you to take the name. Will you do that? For me, Tenya. The thought alone was enough to make Tenya start writing the kanji for his brother's hero name, but he only barely finished the first part before pausing midway. Number. I'm still. He erased his work and instead wrote down his first name, presenting it to the class in silence. You're using your real name, too? Midnight asked, feeling concerned as she saw Tenya's dejected expression. And she could tell that everyone noticed as well, especially those who were with the Autobots. Well, if that's how you feel, though I hope you will be able to find one eventually. With a silent bow, Tenya excused himself back to his seat. Now, Midoriya, are you ready? All eyes were on the greenette now, well, almost all. Bakugo still had his head down as he furiously scribbled his new name. Izuku blushed as a bit of apprehension rose in his chest, but when he felt Kyoka put a supportive hand to his back, his confidence shot right back up. Yes, I am. He smiled back to the punk rocker in gratitude, Kyoka giving him a nod as he stood up and went to the front. Izuku took a deep breath, before presenting his chosen name to the class. This is it. It has to be. The moment the other teens saw it, they were left quite surprised, aside from those who already knew, that is. Huh, Midoriya, is that really what you want? Keita asked, visibly worried. Yeah, I mean, you absolutely sure about that, man? Sato added. Zero also felt the need to reiterate. Remember, that could be your name forever. I know. Izuku affirmed, glancing down to his shaky penmanship. I used to hate it. But then, something changed. Someone taught me that it could have a different meaning. And that left a huge impact on how I felt. So now, I really like it. He still remembered that day all those months back, where Kyoka had told him how the insult could be turned into something great by having it be his hero name. It made him smile seeing the young woman in front of him well up with pride, which only solidified his choice. Deku. That has to be my codename. He could have sworn he saw Bakugo lift his head up briefly, but by the time Izuku glanced back, he put it back down. He knew that would likely get his attention, but by that point, Izuku wasn't bothered by what the blonde thought. No matter what, I'll make Deku into the name of a hero. You can bet on that. Meanwhile, in the staff room, Smintos was still going through more incoming offers. It was almost staggering how many these kids were getting, especially the first years. Huh, it's almost unbelievable. He said as Toshinori came up behind him. All Might, your protégés certainly become quite popular. The anorexic man couldn't help but beam with joy and pride. Counting up Izuku's offers yesterday was certainly quite the sight to behold. Hee, young Midoriya's certainly garnered quite the attention after dominating the sports festival. So, I'm guessing he's got another offer. Yep, though I don't think I recognize this hero's name. Let me see. Toshinori leaned past Smintos' shoulder to peer at the computer, and what he saw sent a feeling of absolute dread through his lithe body. What? Are you kidding me? Back in class, after everyone's names were chosen, aside from Bakugo who tried to get past with Lord Explosion murder to no avail, Aizawa woke back up and took the reins again. Midnight chose to stay, though, and was currently stretching her arms next to the tired teacher. Alright, now that everyone's decided on their hero names, we can go back to discussing your upcoming internships. Aizawa picked up a stack of papers from under the desk and straightened them out. They'll last for 1 week and will begin about a week and a half from now. As for who you'll be working with, those of you who were on the board will choose from among your offers. Everyone else will have a different list. You have a lot to think about. There are about 40 agencies from across the country who've agreed to take on interns from your class. Each agency has a different specialty that its heroes focus on. Keep that in mind. Midnight offered an example to the teens. Imagine if you were 13, she said, bringing the space hero into the students' minds. You would want to focus on an agency that specializes in rescuing people, not fighting villains, understand? So you should continue to think carefully before you decide. Once all of the forms were passed out, with the students all wondering what they should go with, Aizawa gave a final heads up. Just make sure to turn in your choices before the weekend. Understood. Wait, we only have 2 days. Zero exclaimed. Yeah, so you should start now. On that note, Aizawa and Midnight both went to the door as the bell for lunch rang. You're dismissed. As the door closed, however, the students were left utterly baffled. How were they supposed to choose from all of these options in just 2 days? Well, this might be harder than I thought. Mina mused to herself. You think you've got it bad, Mina. Kyoka thumbed over to Izuku, who had a large pile of papers on his desk. Try being one of the top 3. The greenette could only stare incredulously at his stack. It had been one thing to be given a number, but this put it in a whole new perspective. Well, how about we discuss our options over lunch, huh? He set his eyes onto all of his friends hopefully. Maybe if we put our heads together, we can narrow down our options. Oh, that's an interesting idea, Midoriya. Momo concurred. Yeah, sounds like fun. Keita stood up, ready to head down to the cafeteria. However, she also noticed that Shoto seemed to be staring at his own papers with a surprised look, making her tilt her head down to him. What's up, Shoto? Something the matter? Oh, nothing much. An option just caught my eye. Shoto stood up and put the sheets of paper in his book bag, hoping that Keita didn't see said option. My father's agency, of course he'd want me there, he nodded to her as he took up his things. So, shall we head down? Izuku and the others were quick to agree. Yeah, sounds like a plan. Just as the 1A students arrived at the door, however, it was flung open by a sudden force of wind that came from All Might zipping down the hall. Ha 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 ha, I am here in a bizarre position. He laughed awkwardly as he bent down so far that he was at eye level with Izuku, sticking his rear out behind him. Everyone was caught off guard, especially the number 1 hero's protege himself. Yeah, what's that about? Why are you in such a hurry? Hi, come with me for a sec. All Might was visibly sweating, though whether it was from running or nerves was anyone's guess. Young Midoriya, I apologize, but there's been an error regarding your paperwork. We need to get you some updated forms. Oh, Izuku knew that probably wasn't the case, however. Something important was going on, that much was clear. He glanced back to his friends and was met with some supportive nods, urging him to go with. Oh okay, lead the way, All Might suddenly scooped Izuku up, holding him under his arm as if he was a football. Perfect. Pardon us for just a moment. Zoom. With Izuku's shriek heard throughout the halls, the students could do nothing but watch as All Might carted him off. Then, just across the way, the door to Class 1B opened up, with Tetsu sticking his head out incredulously. What the hell was that? All Might had wanted to wait until after school for this, but now wasn't the time to be hesitant. Especially not where this was concerned. He had to find a private place to talk with Izuku, stat. Considering the high traffic between periods, the restrooms were out. And since it was lunchtime, the teacher's lounge would be packed. So, that left one more option, the sports festival stadium, which was all but empty. There, the pro hero set his student down and apologized for the abrupt exit. I'm sorry for the suddenness of all that, young Midoriya, but I had to get you out here for an important conversation. I kinda figured, Izuku said as he brushed his windswept hair back into place with his hands. So, what is going on? I'll get straight to the point. All Might turned toward the inside of the tunnel, facing away from his successor. You've received a last-minute offer from a hero who would like to take you on. Izuku's eyebrows rose up. Oh, another. Wow, I didn't think more would be coming in. That made All Might's smile widen. Hey, yes, congratulations on that, by the way. I was quite proud of the amount of offers you received. But, back on topic, the hero's name is Gran Torino. The brunette raised a brow. Gran Torino. I don't think I've ever heard of him. Not unexpected. He was a hero back in the day, but even then, he stayed on the down low, except for when he taught here at UA back in my day, but only for a single year. All Might scratched his cheek, peeking back to see Izuku's eyes widen in fascination. In fact, he was my homeroom teacher, and he knows about One for All as well. I suspect that's the reason he asked for you. As he anticipated, Izuku's inner fanboy showed itself, his eyes gleaming in excitement at the prospect of being taught by one of All Might's old teachers. This guy sounds totally awesome. So, he knows how your quirk works too, huh? How is that? Well, Gran Torino was a sworn friend of my predecessor. He retired a long time ago, so, All Might frantically rubbed his neck. I sometimes forget to count him among the people who know. From there, the One for All user began to get bogged down by more negative thoughts. Goo, is this because I mentioned you in the letter I sent him earlier this month? Or did he watch the festival and think my teaching was inadequate? He even went so far as to use his old hero name when making the offer. That's scary, too scary. He began smacking his trembling leg repeatedly. Damn it, leg, stop shaking. Izuku was left staring at his mentor from the back, aghast at just how intimidated All Might seemed to be at the moment. All Might is seriously freaking out. What's the Gran Torino guy like anyway? Slowly, All Might reached into his pocket and took out a slip. So anyway, it is my duty to train you, BB, but since you got an offer from him, you should probably take that opportunity if you so desire. He passed the slip over his shoulder. Anywhere, here the address. Thank you. Izuku took the paper reluctantly. I mean, I got a lot of other offers, too, but considering he knows about One for All. All Might spun around and clapped his hands together, bowing to Izuku profusely. Please don't feel pressured to make a choice on this now, young Midoriya. You've still got time. I know. Thank you. Izuku bowed back. I'll be sure to take my time and think. Good. Now get going, before your friends suspect anything. What would they suspect? Now. All Might watched as his protege made a mad dash toward the school, leaving him with his thoughts. Gran Torino, what fresh hell could you possibly think of putting young Midoriya through? And it's the end of Season 2 Part 20 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.